Sarah stared at her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror, her wedding dress now wrinkled and stained with tears. The beautiful white gown that had made her feel like a princess just hours ago now felt like a costume from a play she never wanted to be in. Her mascara had created dark rivers down her cheeks, and her carefully styled hair was falling apart, just like her entire world. The sound of Michael's voice echoing through the hotel room still rang in her ears. Those words he had, spoken on the phone thinking she was in the shower, would haunt her forever. "Yeah, I went through with it. The wedding was perfect, just like we planned. She has no idea about us, Emma. Tomorrow we can finally be together like we always wanted." Her hands trembled as she gripped the marble countertop. Emma Richardson, her best friend since college. The same Emma who had been her maid of honor, who had helped her pick out this very dress, who had thrown her the most beautiful bridal shower just 2 weeks ago. The same Emma who had been sleeping with her husband for the past 6 months, planning this elaborate deception while Sarah planned her dream wedding. Sarah's mind raced back through the past year, looking for signs she had missed. The late-night work calls that Michael claimed were important business deals. The way Emma had suddenly become so interested in helping with every wedding detail, insisting on specific vendors and venues. The mysterious text messages Michael would quickly hide whenever Sarah entered the room. The business trips that seemed to coincide perfectly with Emma's own travel schedule. How could she have been so blind? The woman who had stood beside her, at the altar, holding her bouquet and wiping away happy tears, had been plotting to steal her husband the entire time. The friend who had given a heartfelt speech about true love and forever promises had been living a lie for months. Sarah slowly unzipped her wedding dress, letting it pool around her feet like a broken promise. She stepped out of it and left it, there on the cold bathroom tiles. In the mirror, she could see the expensive lingerie she had bought specially for tonight, the delicate white lace that was supposed to make this night magical. Instead, she felt empty and hollow, like someone had reached inside her chest and torn out her heart. She could hear Michael moving around in the bedroom, probably texting Emma about how successful their plan had been. The thought made her sick, to her stomach. She had given this man 3 years of her life, had trusted him with her deepest secrets, had believed every lie he told her about their future together. But Emma's betrayal cut even deeper. They had been roommates in college, had supported each other through heartbreaks, career changes, and family problems. Emma had been the first person Sarah called when Michael proposed. She had squealed with excitement and immediately started planning the engagement party. Had it all been fake? Had Emma been jealous from the very beginning? Sarah remembered the night 6 months ago when Emma had broken up with her longtime boyfriend, David. She had cried on Sarah's couch for hours, talking about how she felt like she was wasting her life, how she wanted someone who truly appreciated her. Sarah had comforted her, made her tea, and listened to her pour out her heart. Had that been the night everything changed? Had Emma looked at Michael and decided she wanted him for herself? The hotel room suddenly felt suffocating. Sarah needed air, needed space to think, needed to get away from the scene of this devastating discovery. She quickly changed into the casual clothes she had packed for their honeymoon departure tomorrow, threw some essentials into a small bag, and crept toward the bedroom door. Michael was sitting on the edge of the bed with his back to her, still in his wedding tuxedo but with his bow tie undone. He was typing furiously on his phone, probably making plans with Emma for tomorrow. Sarah felt a surge of anger so intense it nearly knocked her over. This man had promised to love and cherish her just hours ago, in front of their families and friends, in front of God. He had looked into her eyes and spoken vows that meant nothing to him. She thought about confronting him right then and there, screaming at him, demanding answers. But something inside her held back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the need to process this betrayal fully before acting. Or maybe it was something deeper, a survival instinct that told her she needed to be smart about this, needed to think carefully about her next moves. Instead, she quietly slipped out of the hotel room, leaving behind not just her husband, but the entire life she had imagined they would build together. The hallway was empty and eerily quiet. Other newlyweds were probably celebrating in their rooms, starting their new lives together with joy and hope. Sarah felt like she was walking through a nightmare. In the elevator, she caught her reflection again. She looked like a different person than the radiant bride who had walked down the aisle that afternoon. That woman had believed in love, in trust, in the power of commitment. This woman staring back at her had learned in a single moment that everything she believed in could be a lie. As the elevator doors opened to the hotel lobby, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to fall apart. She wasn't going to let Michael and Emma destroy her without consequences. They thought they had won, thought they had successfully deceived her, and would now live happily ever after on the ruins of her heart. They had no idea what was coming for them. Sarah had always been underestimated, had always been seen as the sweet, trusting friend who never caused trouble. But they had awakened something in her that she didn't even know existed. They were about to discover that betraying someone's trust, especially on what should have been the happiest day of their life, comes with a price. The real Sarah was about to emerge, and the fallout would be more devastating than either Michael or Emma could possibly imagine. Sarah drove through the empty streets in her rental car, her mind surprisingly clear despite the chaos of emotions swirling inside her. She had left the hotel 20 minutes ago, and Michael probably still hadn't noticed she was gone. The irony wasn't lost on her that he was so focused on texting his mistress that he hadn't even realized his bride had disappeared on their wedding night. She pulled into the parking lot of an all-night diner and sat in the car for a moment, staring at her phone. There were already several missed calls from her sister Jessica, probably wondering how the wedding night was going. The thought of explaining this nightmare to anyone made her stomach churn. But she needed help, and Jessica was the only person she trusted completely. Inside the diner, Sarah chose a corner booth away from the few other late-night customers. A tired-looking waitress brought her coffee without being asked, seeming to sense that she needed it. Sarah's hands were steadier. Now as she dialed Jessica's number, "Sarah, why are you calling? Shouldn't you be with your new husband right now?" Jessica's voice was groggy but concerned. "Jess, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Something terrible has happened, and I need your help." Sarah's voice was calm, but her sister immediately picked up on the underlying tension. "What's wrong? Are you hurt? Where are you?" Sarah explained everything she had overheard, every devastating detail of Michael and Emma's conversation. She could hear Jessica gasping and cursing on the other end of the line, her anger building with each revelation. "That absolute piece of trash! And Emma! I never liked her, Sarah. There was always something fake about her. But this is beyond evil. Where are you now? I'm coming to get you." "I'm at Tony's diner on Highway 52, but Jess, I don't want you to come get me. I need you to do something else for me, something important." Sarah had been thinking during the drive, her mind working through possibilities and consequences. She wasn't the same trusting woman who had walked down the aisle that afternoon. The betrayal had awakened something fierce and calculating inside her. "I need you to go to Michael's apartment tomorrow morning. He gave me his spare key months ago and I still have it. I need you to get his laptop and look through his emails and text messages. I need proof of how long this has been going, on how they planned this whole thing." Jessica was quiet for a moment. "Sarah, are you sure about this? Maybe you should just confront him, get a divorce, and move on. Don't let them drag you down to their level." "They destroyed my life, Jess. They made me look like a fool in front of everyone we know. They planned this deception for months, maybe longer. I'm not going to just walk away and let them live happily ever after while I try to pick up the pieces of my shattered life." There was something in Sarah's voice that Jessica had never heard before, a cold determination that was both impressive and slightly frightening. Okay, I'll help you. But what's your plan? What are you going to do with the evidence? Sarah had been asking herself the same question. What did she want? Revenge? Justice? Or just the satisfaction of making them face consequences for their actions? I don't know yet. But I know I can't make any decisions without knowing the full truth. How long has this been going on? Did they start planning this before he even proposed? Are there other people involved? I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with. After hanging up with Jessica, Sarah sat in the diner until dawn, nursing cup after cup of coffee and thinking. She watched the sun come up through the windows, realizing that this was supposed to be the morning after her wedding night. She should have been waking up next to her new husband, planning their honeymoon, talking about their future together. Instead, she was planning something entirely different. She thought about their joint bank account, the wedding gifts they had received, the apartment lease they had just signed together. The practical aspects of untangling their lives would be complicated enough, but the emotional devastation was something else entirely. Around 7 in the morning, her phone started buzzing with text messages. The first few were from Michael, and she could track his growing panic as he realized she was gone. Sarah, where are you? I woke up, and you weren't here. Sarah, please call me. I'm worried about you. Did you go out for breakfast? Why aren't you answering your phone? Then came the calls. Sarah watched her phone ring and ring, Michael's name flashing on the screen. She didn't answer. Let him worry. Let him wonder where she had gone and what she might know. The next messages were more frantic. Sarah, please, whatever's wrong, we can talk about it. Just tell me where you are. Sarah almost laughed at the irony. Now he wanted to talk. Now he was concerned about their relationship. Where was this concern when he was cheating on her with her best friend? By 8 o'clock, other people were starting to reach out. Michael had clearly started calling their friends and family, claiming that Sarah had mysteriously disappeared, and he was worried about her. Her phone was lighting up with concerned messages from wedding guests, family members, and friends. Sarah realized she needed to be strategic about this. She couldn't let Michael control the narrative, couldn't let him paint himself as the worried husband whose unstable wife had run off for no reason. She needed to get ahead of this story. She called. Her parents first, knowing they would be getting calls from Michael soon if they hadn't already. Her mother answered on the first ring, her voice tight with worry. Sarah, thank God. Michael called us at 6 this morning, said you had disappeared from the hotel. We've been so worried. Are you okay? Where are you? Mom, I'm fine. I'm safe. But I need you and Dad to know that Michael isn't the man we thought he was. I found out something last night that changed everything. I can't go into details right now, but I need you to trust me. Don't believe whatever story he's telling people. Her mother was silent for a long moment. Sarah could practically hear her processing this information, trying to make sense of it. Honey, what did he do? He's been cheating on me, Mom, with Emma. They've been planning this for months. I overheard them talking last night after the wedding. They thought I was in the shower, but I heard everything. The sound her mother made was somewhere between a gasp and a growl. That son of a bitch? And Emma? That little snake? Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. What do you need us to do? This was why Sarah loved her family. No questions about whether she was sure, no suggestions that she might have misunderstood. Just immediate support and a readiness to help. I need you to not let anyone know where I am or what I'm doing. Michael is going to try to find me, and I need time to figure out my next move. Can you handle the family calls and just tell everyone I'm safe, but need some space? As Sarah hung up the phone, she felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. She wasn't the victim in this story anymore. She was taking control, making plans, preparing for a battle that Michael and Emma had. No idea was coming. Jessica texted Sarah at noon with a simple message. Got everything. You're not going to believe this. Meet me at the old coffee shop near campus at 2 p.m. Come alone. Sarah had spent the morning checking into a small motel under her maiden name, paying cash for a week's stay. She had turned off the location services on her phone and ignored the dozens of calls and messages that continued to pour in. Michael was clearly in full panic mode now, and Emma had started reaching out too, her messages full of fake concern about Sarah's sudden disappearance. The coffee shop where Sarah met Jessica was nearly empty in the afternoon lull. Jessica was already there when Sarah arrived, sitting at their old favorite table in the back corner, a laptop bag beside her, and an expression on her face that Sarah had never seen before. It was a mixture of disgust, anger, and something that looked almost like admiration. "Before I show you what I found, I need you to promise me something," Jessica said, sliding a cup of coffee across the table. "Promise me you're not going to do anything stupid." "What I found is, it's worse than we thought, but it's also exactly what you need." Sarah's heart pounded as Jessica opened Michael's laptop. "How much worse?" "This didn't start 6 months ago, Sarah. I found emails going back almost 2 years. They've been planning this since before he proposed to you." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. 2 years. That meant they had been laughing at her, manipulating her, planning her humiliation for almost their entire relationship. She thought about all the times Emma had been at their apartment, all the double dates, all the moments when she had felt so lucky to have such a wonderful friend and such a loving fiancé. Jessica turned the laptop screen toward Sarah. "I printed out the most important emails, but you should see these too. They're really detailed about how they were going to handle everything." Sarah read in horrified fascination as months of deception unfolded before her eyes. Emma and Michael hadn't just been having an affair. They had been methodically planning Sarah's entire downfall, discussing how to manage her emotions, how to keep her from getting suspicious, how to time everything perfectly. One email from Emma, dated just 3 weeks ago, made Sarah's blood run cold. "She's getting so excited about the honeymoon. It's almost sad how trusting she is. But don't feel bad, baby. We both know she was never right for you. She's too boring, too predictable. She would have held you back your whole life. We're doing her a favor in the long run." Another email from Michael, sent the day after he proposed, was even worse. "It's done. She said yes, and she was crying so hard she couldn't even speak. I actually felt a little guilty for a second, but then I thought about our future together, and I knew this was the right thing to do. The wedding will be expensive, but her dad is paying for most of it, and we'll get enough gifts to set us up nicely. Plus, I'll have access to her trust fund once we're married. We can take a nice chunk of that before I file for divorce." Sarah felt like she might throw up. This wasn't just about love or lust or even ordinary betrayal. They had been planning to steal from her, to use her father's generosity and her own trust fund to finance their new life together. The wedding hadn't been a celebration of love. It had been an elaborate heist. "There's more," Jessica said quietly. They were planning to wait exactly 6 months after the wedding before he would ask for a divorce. Something about making sure certain financial transactions went through first, and Emma has been documenting everything, taking photos, keeping records. They were planning to paint you as an unstable wife who couldn't handle married life. Jessica pulled out a printed email that made Sarah's hands shake as she read it. It was Emma writing to Michael. "I got some great shots of Sarah at the bridal shower when she was crying about her grandmother not being alive to see the wedding. She looked completely unhinged. Between that and the photos I took when she was stressed about the wedding planning, we should have plenty of evidence that she was emotionally unstable even before the marriage. It will make the divorce much easier." Sarah stared at the papers scattered across the table, each one representing another layer of betrayal, another level of cruelty she hadn't imagined possible. These people hadn't just broken her heart. They had been systematically destroying her life for years, documenting her most vulnerable moments to use against her later. "They were never going to let you walk away clean, were they?" Sarah said, more to herself than to Jessica. "They were going to take everything, my money, my reputation, my dignity. They were going to leave me with nothing." Jessica nodded grimly. "But Sarah, here's the thing. They kept records of everything. Every email, every plan, every cruel comment. They documented their own crime. This isn't just evidence of an affair anymore. This is evidence of fraud, conspiracy, maybe even theft. They've been planning to steal from you, and they put it all in writing." Sarah felt something shift inside her, like a switch being flipped. The hurt and devastation were still there, but they were now joined by something much more powerful. A cold, focused anger that gave her perfect clarity. "They made one mistake," Sarah said, her voice steady and calm. "They underestimated me. They thought I was weak and trusting and predictable. They thought they could manipulate me forever, and I would never fight back." "What are you going to do?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her mind working through possibilities. She thought about the dozens of wedding guests who had celebrated with them just yesterday, all the people who had believed in their love story. She thought about her parents, who had paid for an expensive wedding to celebrate what they thought was their daughter's happiness. She thought about Michael's family, who had welcomed her so warmly, never knowing their son was a liar and a thief. "I'm going to give them exactly what they've been planning for me, just in reverse," Sarah said finally. "They want to destroy my reputation and steal my money? Fine. Let's see how they like it when their reputation gets destroyed instead. Let's see how they like it when everyone they know finds out exactly who they really are." Jessica looked both excited and nervous. "What's your plan?" "They think they're so smart, keeping all these records, planning every detail. But they forgot one thing. I have friends too. I have family. I have resources. And now I have evidence of everything they've done." Sarah pulled out her own phone and started scrolling through her contacts. "Remember David, Emma's ex-boyfriend? The one she dumped 6 months ago, right when this affair started getting serious? I bet he'd be very interested to know why his relationship really ended. And Michael's business partner, Jake? He's always prided himself on running an ethical company. I wonder how he'd feel about having a partner who's been planning elaborate fraud schemes." "Sarah, that's justice," Sarah finished. "They spent 2 years planning my humiliation. They documented every step of their plan to steal from me and destroy my life. Now it's my turn to make some plans." Sarah looked down at the emails again, feeling a strange sense of gratitude. Michael and Emma had been so arrogant, so confident in their superiority, that they had given her everything she needed to destroy them completely. "They wanted to play games," Sarah said, closing the laptop. "They just didn't realize they were playing with someone who could learn the rules very, very quickly." Sarah spent the next 3 days methodically planning her counterattack. She had learned from Michael and Emma's mistake of rushing into emotional decisions. Instead, she approached their destruction with the same cold calculation they had used, against her. Her first call was to David Mitchell, Emma's ex-boyfriend. She had his number from the many double dates they had all gone on together back when she thought Emma was her friend. David answered on the second ring, his voice cautious, when he realized who was calling. "Sarah, I heard about the wedding disappearance. Are you okay? Emma's been calling everyone, saying she's worried about you." "David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. When you and Emma broke up 6 months ago, did she give you a real reason? Or did it feel sudden and strange?" There was a long pause. "Actually, it did feel strange. She kept saying she needed space to figure out what she wanted in life, but something felt off. She was secretive about where she was going, who she was with." "Why are you asking?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Because I found out yesterday that she's been having an affair with my husband for the past 2 years. They planned the whole thing. David, They were planning to let me find out after the wedding so they could steal my money and be together. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Sarah wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, David spoke, his voice tight with anger. Are you serious? Emma was cheating on me with Michael? For how long? I have emails proving it started almost 2 years ago, while you two were still together, while I was engaged to him. They were laughing about how easy it was to fool us both. David's response was immediate and furious. That explains so much. The secret phone calls, the mysterious work trips, the way she suddenly became so interested in your wedding planning. I thought she was just being a good friend, but she was planning her own future with your fiancé. David, I know this is a lot to process, but I need to ask you a favor. Emma probably has some of your things still. Maybe photos of you two together. I need you to go get them. Today. Don't tell her why, just make up an excuse. What are you planning, Sarah? Justice. They spent 2 years planning to humiliate me publicly and steal from me. I'm going to return the favor. After David agreed. To help, Sarah's next call was to Jake Morrison, Michael's business partner. Jake had always been the more ethical one in their partnership, and Sarah knew he took their company's reputation seriously. They had a small but successful consulting firm, and Jake had often talked about the importance of trust in their industry. Jake, it's Sarah. I need to talk to you about something important concerning Michael. Sarah, everyone's been looking for you. Michael's been going crazy with worry. Where have you been? I've been somewhere safe while I figured out how to handle the fact that my husband has been lying to me for years. Jake, I need you to know that Michael has been planning to steal money from my accounts. I have documentation of everything. Jake's voice changed immediately, becoming more serious and professional. What kind of documentation? Emails detailing how he was going to access my trust fund after we got married and then file for divorce 6 months later. There are also emails about fraudulent business expenses and other schemes. Jake, he's been planning this for 2 years, and he's put your company at risk. I need to see these emails, Sarah. If what you're saying is true, I need to protect the business immediately. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I'll bring everything. But Jake, I need you to promise me that you won't warn Michael. He can't know that you know, not yet. While Sarah was making these calls, Jessica had been busy with her own assignment. She had reached out to several of their mutual friends, not to tell them what had happened, but to gather information about Emma and Michael's behavior over the past few months. The picture that emerged was damning. Multiple friends mentioned seeing Emma and Michael together at odd times, including a lunch date just 2 weeks before the wedding when Sarah was supposed to be at work. Another friend had seen them leaving a hotel together 3 months ago, but had assumed it was innocent wedding planning. They were hiding in plain sight, Jessica reported to Sarah over dinner at a small restaurant far from their usual hangouts. Everyone saw the signs, but because we all trusted them, we made excuses for their behavior. Sarah nodded, feeling vindicated in her decision to respond with calculated precision rather than emotional outburst. What about the wedding presents? Did you find out where they're being stored? Most of them are at Michael's apartment, but some of the bigger items are at Emma's place. Why? Because technically, those gifts were given to both of us. I have as much right to them as he does. And I think some of our friends might be interested to know what their generous gifts were actually supporting. The next morning, Sarah met with Jake at a neutral location, a business center downtown where they could speak privately. She spread out the printed emails and financial documents that Jessica had found, watching Jake's face grow darker with each page he read. This is serious, Sarah. This isn't just personal betrayal, this is fraud. Michael was planning to use the business accounts as part of his scheme. He could have brought down our entire company. What are you going to do about it? Jake was quiet, for a long moment, studying the documents. I'm going to have to dissolve the partnership immediately, and I'm going to have to report this to our insurance company and possibly to the authorities. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was capable of something like this. It's not your fault, Jake. But I need you to know that I'm not going to let this slide quietly. He and Emma destroyed my life, and they were planning to do much worse. I'm going to make sure everyone knows who they really are." That afternoon, Sarah put the next phase of her plan into motion. She had created a detailed timeline of Michael and Emma's relationship, backed up by their own emails and corroborated by witness accounts from friends. She wasn't going to just tell people what had happened. She was going to prove it beyond any doubt. Her first stop was Michael's parents' house. She had always had a good relationship with them, and she knew they would be devastated to learn the truth about their son. But they deserved to know who they had raised. Michael's mother, Patricia, answered the door with tears in her eyes. "Sarah, oh, honey, we've been so worried about you. Michael is beside himself. Please come in and tell us what's wrong." Sarah sat in their living room, the same room where she had shared so many family dinners and holiday celebrations, and told them everything. She showed them the emails, explained the timeline, and watched as their faces changed from confusion to disbelief to horror. "He was planning to steal from you?" Patricia whispered, her hand over her mouth. "Our son was planning to commit fraud?" "I'm so sorry to have to tell you this. I know how much you love him, but I couldn't let him continue to lie to people who care about him." Michael's father, Robert, was staring at the emails with a look of disgust. "This isn't the son we raised. This isn't the man we thought we knew. Sarah, what can we do to help you? I need you to know that when this all comes out, and it will come out, I tried to handle it with dignity. I didn't want to hurt your family, but I can't let Michael and Emma get away with what they've done." As Sarah left their house, she felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. She wasn't enjoying destroying people's faith in Michael, but she also wasn't going to let him continue his deception unchallenged. Her phone had been buzzing all day with increasingly frantic messages from both Michael and Emma. They had clearly realized that she wasn't just taking a few days to cool off. Something had shifted in their messages, too. They were becoming more defensive, more urgent. Michael's latest text read, "Sarah, whatever you think you know, we need to talk. There are things you don't understand. Please don't do anything you'll regret." Sarah almost laughed at the irony. Now he was concerned about regret? Now he wanted to talk about understanding? She texted back a single message. "I understand everything perfectly. See you soon." The final phase of her plan was about to begin. Sarah had been planning this moment for a week. She stood outside the restaurant where Michael and Emma were having lunch, the same upscale place where they had celebrated her engagement just over a year ago. Through the window, she could see them sitting at a corner table, their heads close together, probably discussing their growing panic about her disappearance and what she might know. They looked relaxed, confident even. Emma was wearing a new dress that Sarah recognized as being expensive, probably bought with money from the wedding gifts or from Michael's planned financial schemes. Michael was checking his phone constantly, but when he wasn't looking at it, he was smiling at Emma with the same expression he used to give Sarah. Sarah took a deep breath and walked inside. She had dressed carefully for this confrontation, choosing a simple but elegant outfit that made her look composed and in control. She wanted them to see that she wasn't the broken, hysterical woman they probably expected. The hostess tried to seat her, but Sarah politely declined, walking directly to Michael and Emma's table. They looked up simultaneously, and the expressions on their faces were almost comical. Michael went pale, his mouth falling open, while Emma's face flushed red with what looked like a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Hello, Michael. Emma. Mind if I join you?" Sarah didn't wait for an answer, pulling out the third chair and sitting down calmly. She placed a manila envelope on the table between them and smiled. "Sarah," Michael started, his voice shaky. "Where have you been? I've been worried sick. Why haven't you been answering your phone?" "I've been busy," Sarah replied, her tone conversational. "Learning some very interesting things about my husband and my best friend, or should I say, my soon-to-be ex-husband and former best friend." Emma finally found her voice. Sarah, I don't know what you think you know, but I know everything, Emma. I know about the 2-year affair. I know about the planning, the emails, the financial schemes. I know about the photos you took to document my emotional instability. I know about the timeline for the divorce and the plan to steal from my trust fund. I literally know everything. The silence at the table was deafening. Other diners were starting to notice the tension, some turning to look at their table with curious expressions. Michael tried to regain control of the situation. Sarah, if you would just let me explain. Explain what? How you've been planning to destroy my life for 2 years? How you married me yesterday knowing you were going to betray me? How you and Emma have been laughing at how stupid and trusting I am? Sarah opened the manila envelope and pulled out several printed emails, spreading them on the table like playing cards. Should I read some of these out loud? I think the other customers might find them interesting, especially the one where Emma calls me pathetically boring and you agree that I'm too stupid to ever figure out what's really going on. Emma's eyes were wide with panic. Sarah, please, we can work this out. We never meant for you to get hurt. Sarah laughed, and there was no humor in it. You never meant for me to get hurt? Emma, you documented my most vulnerable moment specifically to use against me in a divorce. Michael, you were planning to steal my inheritance. How exactly was I not supposed to get hurt? Keep your voice down, Michael hissed, looking around at the other diners who were now openly staring at their table. Why? Are you embarrassed? Are you worried about what people might think? Sarah's voice got slightly louder. That's interesting, considering you've spent 2 years not caring about my feelings at all. She pulled out more documents. I've had a very productive week, you know. I've talked to David, Emma. He was fascinated to learn why you really broke up with him. Turns out he had suspected something was wrong, but he trusted you too much to believe you were capable of this level of deception. Emma's face went from red to white. You told David? I told David. I told Jake, Michael's business partner. I told both sets of parents. I told several of our mutual friends. Basically, I told everyone who deserved to know the truth about who you really are. Michael's composure finally cracked completely. You had no right to destroy our lives like this. Whatever mistakes we made, this is vindictive and cruel. Sarah stared at him with genuine amazement. Vindictive and cruel? Michael, you married me yesterday planning to steal my money and destroy my reputation. You called our wedding a necessary business transaction in one of your emails. But somehow I'm the cruel one for telling people the truth. Sarah, please. Emma tried one more time, reaching across the table as if to touch her hand. We fell in love. We didn't mean for it to happen, but we couldn't help ourselves. Surely you can understand that. Sarah pulled her hand away as if Emma's touch would burn her. You fell in love 2 years ago, Emma. But instead of being honest about it, instead of ending your relationship with David and letting me know that Michael wasn't available, you decided to lie and scheme and manipulate everyone around you. You made me plan a wedding to a man who was already committed to someone else. You made me believe my best friend cared about me while you were plotting my downfall. She stood up, gathering the documents back into the envelope. But here's the thing you both forgot. Actions have consequences. You thought you were so smart keeping all these records, planning every detail. You never considered that those same records could be used against you. What do you want from us? Michael asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't want anything from you anymore. I wanted a loving husband and a loyal friend, but those people never existed. You created fake versions of yourselves to manipulate me, and now the real versions get to deal with the consequences. Sarah pulled out one final document and placed it on the table. This is a restraining order. Both of you are to stay away from me, my family, and my property. If you try to contact me or interfere with my life in any way, you'll be arrested. She paused, looking at both of them with something that might have been pity. Oh, and Emma? David would like his grandmother's ring back, the one you told him. You lost? He found it in the photos I gave him from Michael's apartment. Apparently, you've been wearing it while planning your new life. Emma's hand instinctively went to her neck, where a delicate chain held a ring she thought no one would recognize. And Michael? Jake wanted me to tell you that your business partnership is officially dissolved as of this morning. Something about not being able to trust someone who plans elaborate fraud schemes. He's also reporting your planned financial crimes to the appropriate authorities. You should probably get a lawyer. Sarah turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at them one more time. You know what the really sad part is? If you had just been honest from the beginning, if you had just told me you were in love with each other, I would have been hurt. But I would have gotten over it. We could have all moved on with our lives with some dignity and tact. Instead, you chose to be cruel and calculating, and now everyone knows exactly who you are. As she walked toward the restaurant exit, Sarah could hear Emma starting to cry and Michael angrily whispering something about lawyers and damage control. But their voices faded as she stepped outside into the sunshine. For the first time in a week, Sarah felt truly free. The weight of betrayal was still there, but it was joined by something else, the satisfaction of knowing that she had fought back, that she hadn't let them destroy her without consequences. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. How did it go? Sarah typed back. Phase 1 complete. On to Phase 2. Because Sarah wasn't done yet. The public confrontation had been necessary, but it was just the beginning. Michael and Emma had spent 2 years planning her destruction. She had spent 1 week planning theirs, and she was much better at it than they were. The real fallout was just beginning. 3 months after the confrontation at the restaurant, Sarah sat in her new apartment, scrolling through her phone and marveling at how completely her life had changed. The apartment was smaller than the one she had shared with Michael, but it was entirely hers, decorated with furniture that reflected her actual taste, rather than compromises made for a relationship that had been built on lies. The fallout from her revelations had been swift and devastating for Michael and Emma, but it had also been oddly liberating for Sarah. She had learned that she was much stronger than anyone, including herself, had ever imagined. David had been the first to take action after Sarah's revelations. He had not only retrieved his grandmother's ring, but had also started his own investigation into Emma's behavior during their relationship. It turned out that Emma's deception went far beyond just the affair with Michael. She had been stealing small amounts of money from David's accounts, had lied about several work trips that were actually romantic getaways with Michael, and had even been secretly applying for credit cards in David's name. David had filed charges against Emma for identity, theft, and fraud. When the story broke in their local newspaper, it painted a picture of a woman who had been systematically deceiving multiple people for years. The headline read, "Local woman charged with identity theft after elaborate wedding day deception. Exposed." Michael's downfall had been even more spectacular. Jake's investigation into the business had revealed that Michael's planned fraud scheme was just the tip of the iceberg. He had been embezzling small amounts from client accounts for months, always planning to pay it back once he gained access to Sarah's trust fund. When those crimes came to light, Michael faced not only civil lawsuits, but also serious criminal charges. The local business community, which was tight-knit and built on reputation and trust, had completely ostracized Michael. His consulting firm collapsed within weeks, and he was facing bankruptcy on top of his legal troubles. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah that Michael, who had married her partly for her money, was now drowning in legal fees and had lost everything he had worked to build. But perhaps the most satisfying consequence for Sarah was how their mutual friends had responded to the truth. Rather than rallying around Michael and Emma or taking a neutral stance, their entire social circle had been horrified by the level of premeditation and cruelty involved in their deception. Their friend group hadn't just rejected Michael and Emma. They had actively supported Sarah. Several friends had come forward with additional evidence of the affair that they hadn't realized was significant at the time. Others had offered testimonials about Sarah's character that helped in her legal proceedings. The wedding gifts had been another battlefield. Sarah's lawyer had argued successfully that since the marriage had been obtained through fraud, the gifts given in celebration of that fraudulent union should be returned to the gift givers. Many of their friends had insisted that Sarah keep their gifts anyway, saying they were given out of love for her, not for the fake relationship they had been celebrating. Emma had tried to fight for some of the more expensive items, claiming they were given to both the bride and groom. But when her theft and fraud charges became public, most people sided firmly with Sarah. Emma found herself not only facing criminal charges, but also being sued by several former friends who wanted their gifts back rather than let her benefit from them. The legal proceedings had taken months, but Sarah had found the process surprisingly therapeutic. Each court date, each piece of evidence presented, each witness testimony had validated her decision to fight back rather than quietly disappear. She hadn't been vindictive. She had been thorough. Michael had tried several times to reach out through intermediaries, claiming he wanted to apologize and make amends. But Sarah's lawyer had advised her not to engage, and Sarah had found that she genuinely had no interest in hearing what he had to say. The man she thought she had loved had never actually existed. The real Michael was a stranger who had used her for 2 years, and she owed him nothing. Emma's attempts at contact had been more desperate and increasingly unhinged. She had sent long emails talking about their friendship, about how Sarah was destroying an innocent love story, about how she hoped they could work things out. Sarah had forwarded all of these messages to her lawyer and the police as they violated the restraining order. The final email from Emma had been particularly revealing. In it, she had written, "I never meant to hurt you, but you have to understand that Michael and I are soulmates. We were meant to be together, and if you had just stepped aside gracefully, none of this would have happened. You're ruining our happiness out of spite." Reading that email, Sarah had realized that Emma still didn't understand what she had done wrong. She still saw herself as the victim of an unfair situation rather than as someone who had caused tremendous harm through her choices. That email had made it easier for Sarah to let go of any remaining guilt about the consequences Emma was facing. Now, 3 months later, Sarah was rebuilding her life on her own terms. She had taken a new job at a nonprofit organization, work. That felt meaningful in a way her previous career never had. She had made new friends who knew her story, but were interested in her future rather than her past drama. Most surprisingly, she had started dating again. Not seriously, and not with any rush toward commitment, but she had discovered that her experience with Michael and Emma had taught her valuable lessons about recognizing genuine versus manipulative behavior. She was much better at spotting red flags, much more willing to trust her instincts, and much less willing to make excuses for people who didn't treat her well. The man she had been seeing, Marcus, was almost the complete opposite of Michael. He was straightforward to the point, of bluntness, had no patience for games or manipulation, and had been completely upfront about his own past relationships and mistakes. When Sarah had told him her story, his response had been simple. "They sound like terrible people. I'm glad you got away from them." Sarah's family had been incredible throughout the entire ordeal. Her parents had not only supported her emotionally, but had also helped her financially when the legal fees mounted up. Jessica had become not just a sister, but a true best friend, someone Sarah knew she could trust completely. The trust fund that Michael had been planning to steal was now entirely under Sarah's control, and she had used part of it to establish a scholarship fund for young women pursuing education in fields where they were underrepresented. The scholarship was anonymous, but Sarah knew that Michael would probably hear about it through their old social circle, and she hoped he would realize that the money he had tried to steal was now helping people rather than funding his selfish schemes. 6 months after what should have been her honeymoon, Sarah sat on her balcony watching the sunset and thinking about how much her life had changed. She was happier now than she had been even before discovering Michael's betrayal. The experience had been devastating, but it had also shown her that she was capable of fighting for herself, of demanding better treatment, of rebuilding her life on her own terms. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus asking if she wanted to grab dinner. She smiled and texted back yes, then got up to get ready for another evening in her new life. A life built on truth, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about her, free from the manipulation and lies that had defined her previous relationship. As she got dressed, Sarah caught sight of herself in the mirror and was struck by how different she looked. Not just older or more mature, but stronger, more confident, more herself than she had been in years. Michael and Emma had thought they were playing a game with someone who would never fight back. They had learned, too late, that they had awakened something in Sarah that she hadn't even known existed. The fallout had been unimaginable, because they had never imagined that sweet, trusting Sarah could be so fierce when betrayed, so strategic when threatened, so unrelenting when seeking justice. The woman in the mirror smiled back at her, and Sarah realized that in trying to destroy her, Michael and Emma had actually set her free.